Hi YouTube, I'm Aaron Ross, and this week we're talking about why I think the iPad Pro is perfect for photographers. Now, I'm going to walk you through my process and workflow for importing, editing, backing up, sharing, all of those things. But first, I want to talk about why I use the iPad. Now, I chose this over a MacBook or other PC or something like that because of a few reasons. The first being how interactive it is. You'll see as I go through the workflow, the use of the pencil on the iPad really changes how we as the photographers interact with our art. And a lot of times, because it's digital photography, there's this distance or disconnect between us and the image, particularly when we are using it on a big monitor. We're using keyboard shortcuts and the mouse and the cursor and trying to get this fine tuning. But when you use the pencil, it's much more interactive and feels like you're painting, it feels like you're drawing or illustrating. And to me, that really brings me closer to the image and what I'm trying to achieve. The second thing is it's really minimal and therefore makes it easy to travel. Now, there are a few dongles that you need to pack, and you have to have that little dongle pack that all of us have, but that's true on a MacBook these days as well. And so for me, it slides in my bag really easily. I can carry it around, I can throw it in my lap, I can do all sorts of things. And so it really travels well. It goes around the world with me, it goes to my office with me, it does all sorts of things because it's light, it's compact. I don't have to think too much about bringing it because it just travels well. Now, for photographers, as we are editing images, we really want to make sure that we are getting the colors correct. And the iPad Pro's screen is just amazing. It's not like anything I've seen before and really does the job well when I'm trying to be as accurate and as creative as I want to be with the different colors in my images. And the last thing is its flexibility. We've already talked about its ability to travel well and how minimal it is, but if you want, especially with recent updates to mouse support and keyboards and all of the things, you can dock it. So for me, I have a stand here at the office that I then connect into an external monitor. I can then use a keyboard and my mouse and just continue to do things that you do on a desktop. That is true for photography as well as other tasks that you may want to accomplish while using the iPad Pro. Now, that doesn't mean there are no challenges to when using the iPad. There are definitely some features that Adobe has held back to their desktop versions of the software that you just can't get on the iPad. And so you have to find different ways and maybe some different apps to accomplish some of the things that you may achieve on Lightroom or Photoshop on your MacBook. There are also file management things that you just have to be creative about and really think through as you're going about the process of using an iPad instead of a traditional laptop. But for me, all the things that make it great for a photographer absolutely outweigh some of those little hurdles that you have to think about. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into my workflow and process and just sharing with you exactly how I go about using the iPad for photography. So once you have taken the photos on your camera and you have them on your SD card, what I do to import them is I use the official Apple SD card dongle. Now, there are other tools you can use to do this. This is just the one I have chosen. And to import, again, there are a couple ways to do this. You can import directly into Lightroom and start editing, but for my backup process, which we'll get to in a moment, I do import into the Photos app. So what we'll do is we'll plug in our dongle with our SD card. We'll then go into the Photos app. First, we will want to create a new album. And for this, I'm going to call this the Fuji Fine Pics. And then right now, I don't want to import any of the photos from my camera roll into this album, so I'm just going to click Done. I will then find down in the bottom right this option to import, and then you will see the photos that are actually on the SD card. Now, my wife recently was cleaning some drawers and other things in the house, and she discovered an old Fujifilm point and shoot, And if you want to subscribe now, there is going to be a video coming on that and how I think I can use it and is it any good in 2020. So now that I've selected the images, I want to make sure that I select the correct album that I want to import to and click import. Now obviously if you have more photos than just 8, this will obviously take some time, but be patient and those will import into that album for you. Once it's done, you will have this option to delete or keep. For me, I go ahead and keep until I have everything backed up in various places. At this point, because they're imported, you can go ahead and unplug the dongle and set that aside because we will not use that anymore in this process. So now that I have these images here in my camera roll, and if I go over into this here, you can see all of the images. Not really sure what happened there, but we do have some images to play with. So now that I have them in my Photos app, the next thing that I choose to do is back up all of my images before I start editing. This way I already know that they're safe, that I know that I can mess with these, and if I delete something or mess something up, that's okay, I have additional copies. So for my backup process, I use 2 different backups. One is an external connected to my wireless network here at home, and one is Dropbox. Just get them on the internet and in the cloud so that if anything happens here at the house, I have another copy in the cloud. So to do that, the first thing that I do is I open up the My Cloud app. It welcomes me and says hello. I go into my photos. You can see my whole system here of file management. It is currently April, so I'm going to create a new folder. And again, call this Fujifilm Fine Pics. Create the folder. Now there's nothing in this folder yet because I'm going to add something. I'm going to upload photos and go ahead and select the photos I want to import. Since I'm not sure what happened with that image there, we're going to go ahead and skip over that one for now. So I go ahead and hit add. Those are now going to take a moment to import into the My Cloud. This is a WD drive for the My Home Cloud that I use. There are many options out there. This one works for me, although I am running out of space quickly and will need to expand that in the coming months probably. So once all of the images are imported into the My Cloud here at my house, I'll do the same thing with Dropbox. So I have a slightly different folder system, but very similar. I'll go ahead and hit create folder. I actually haven't done my April one yet, but that's incorrect. So we'll go 04 April. This gets everything in the correct order. We'll create that folder. Now within that, we're going to create another folder for our Fujifilm Fine Pics. We'll hit done and create. And now I'll upload photos, do the same thing, select the photos I want to import, and click next. I actually think I missed one there. We'll go back. Make sure you have all of your photos selected that you want to import. Confirm where that's where you want them to go, and upload. And again, this takes a little bit of time to upload. Obviously, if you have a client's project where you have hundreds of photos, this is going to take some time, so be patient. Maybe do this overnight while you are waiting for those to import. Go do some other things, cook dinner, anything like that. But it is definitely key to my process to back up everything before I start working on them, because as you can see, I still have them on my SD card. I have them on the iPad, I have them on the My Cloud here at home, and now I'm going to have them backed up in Dropbox. That means I'm going to have 4 copies of every single one of these images before I start playing with anything in terms of editing. So again, that is how I back up everything when I'm at home. Now when I'm traveling, there's a bit of a difference because I may not always have the best internet connection to upload everything to both the My Cloud at home or Dropbox. So what I do when I'm out in the field or traveling somewhere without internet connection is I use an external hard drive to get extra copies. So for me, I use this SanDisk. I forget exactly what it's called. This is the 500 gigabyte version, but it's the Extreme Portable SSD. Obviously, you can tell it's super small, half a terabyte. And all I do is, I import the images the same way into the camera roll. I use this USB-C cable, which is the same one that I use to charge the iPad, so it's not another cable that I have to bring. But I go ahead and plug that in. I use the Files app. We'll go back here, and now you can see the external is showing up in my folders. So what I do is I go from the Photos app. You select the photos you want to include. You click the little Share button, and if you scroll down, you'll have some additional options. You can save to Files, and now you can click onto External and Photo, and I can create a new folder, Fujifilm Fine Pics. And now you can see that that folder has been created. I'll go ahead and hit save. And what's happening now is it's taking those photos from my camera roll and moving them onto the external hard drive. So then when I'm traveling, I have one version on the SD card, one version on the iPad, and another version on the external. I try and keep these a little separate in different bags as much as I can while traveling in case something happens. One bag goes missing, one gets water spilled on it, various things. I just want to make sure that I have multiple copies and have those backups in case something does happen. So as simple as that, that is done. Those are transferred. Again, I can now unplug the external. And now that I have everything, we'll just go ahead and put that to the side. So now that I have everything imported and backed up in all of the various places, now we can get started on editing. So for me, I use the Adobe apps, both Lightroom and Photoshop. I always start in Lightroom, so I'm going to go ahead and import there. You can see I already have some photos in here. This is from my Around My Block series. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that video out here. I'll link that up in the cards as well as the description below. So again, I am creating a lot of folders in this. Actually, I'm going to create an album here. We're going to create an album. We're going to call this Fujifilm Fine Pics, as I've called every other album or folder we've created in this process. And now I'm going to go ahead down in the bottom and click Import from Camera Roll. Again, there's my photos, so I can select those and go ahead and click Add. Now those are going to take a moment to import here. It is relatively quick for some of these photos, but again, it can take time if you have more volume. Now this is where things get fun, because now I go ahead and I click into this, and similar to the desktop version, you have all of your editing tools right here. There's just a select few things that you don't have access to on the iOS version that you do in the macOS version, but really you have all of the tools you need to make your photos really pop, minus, again, a couple of select tools. So I'm not going to go through my full editing process here, but as you can see, I have all of my basic adjustments. This is a little underexposed. That it's really interactive using Lightroom. Using the pencil really brings you closer to the image. It feels like you're painting a lot of times. This is something that I really enjoy, as opposed to using a mouse or keyboard on a monitor. You can really feel like you are participating and creating the art, as opposed to something a little bit more detached. Now if you want to continue editing this in Photoshop, you can't use the edit in option unlike the desktop version, but what you can use is the open in. Now sometimes Photoshop is a little buried within those settings, but you can find it and hit copy to Photoshop. now you can see that the edited image from Lightroom is imported into Photoshop as its own layer. There are a couple things that you can do here that I use every once in a while. One of those is just to add a border. So that's one quick way to just add a border. If you want a white border or black border, you can do that here. Now we're going to say that is it for our editing. So we will go ahead and do a export. Now here you have a couple of options. I'm going to go ahead and do a JPEG and use standard quality and export. It's going to give you options for where you want to save it, and that really depends on what you want to do with this. If you're looking to take this to just to social media, a lot of times you can just hit save image, it'll go to your camera roll and you can do other things. You can obviously use AirDrop to get it to other devices. You can also save to files if you would like to move this into Dropbox or MyCloud or other things that you want to use. For me, we'll go ahead and call this an image that we would use for social, so I'll go ahead and hit save image. You can now see that export is complete. If I go over to photos, you can see that we have this image here with our white border, so you know this is the one that came from Photoshop. Now I can use this as I want on any social media and get my images out there and have people roll in with the likes. I'm just kidding. It's not really what it's about, but you know what I'm saying. You can share your images, have people give feedback, and really engage with the community in that way. So that is going to do it for today. Go ahead and leave comments down below about your workflow. Is this something you're considering? Are you already using the iPad? How are you going about doing so? Make sure and give this video a thumbs up if you found it valuable. Subscribe as we have more coming your way, and we'll have some playlists on the end card for you to join in and watch some more. But until then, let's just get started.